Hey everyone, welcome to our Jira Advanced Roadmaps, aka plans for project managers. Today we're going to be focusing on program planning. But before we get into it, just want to do a quick shout out. Chad here says, "Morning from the not yet humid Indianapolis." I used to live in the Midwest and dealt with that humidity for 31 months and never again. I live in SoCal. We don't have humidity. And so I like where I'm at. Also, special shout out to Chad here for being a member of this channel. So, Chad, thank you so much for the support. Appreciate it. We got Liz in the house. I need beach and oysters. Yep. Liz, whenever you want to. I've never been to Santa Monica, so if you ever want to take the family and I to Santa Monica, let me know. We will hit up Santa Monica. All right, lucky. That's why I go visit SoCal. Yeah, well, we got a few opportunities for you all to come to SoCal for the rest of the year. So make sure you stick around for some announcements a little bit later. Jason's from St. Louis. I used to live in St. Louis for 31 months. Never again, but it was a great place. I like St. Louis, but I'll stick with Southern California. And then we got Tushar. We got Amy and a few people here that are starting to look very familiar. I'll be there in October. Okay. Let me know what time in October because we have a couple events happening in October. And then we got tutorials done. It's my favorite, Marina Del Rey. I've never been to Marina Del Rey. I haven't been to the beach part, but the closest I've been that way has been to what's the university north of LAX? There's um there's a university that looks like a mall north of LAX, like a few miles, where Electronics Arts is. Help me, somebody who's been in that area. But anyways, I've been up there. That's as close as I've been, but I don't know that I've ever been to a beach on north side or anywhere near LAX. All right. Well, with that said, we're going to get into some interesting conversations today. We're going to be doing program planning, and this is going to be a fun one. There's a little bit of setup that we got to do, so we'll cover that in the slides. So let me just go through the slides here just to get through it, but then we're going to go and do our setup inside of Jira. So first, a couple of housekeeping rules. Sessions being recorded. It's going to be available on this YouTube channel later. So since the slides aren't available and the recordings available on YouTube, you're probably going to want to subscribe to the channel so that you know where to find this and many other trainings. You are probably going to want to turn on your notifications as well because I do one of these like every single week. And so you just want to be notified in case you don't sign up for the bevy events. More on that later. I'll say hello in the chat. As you can see, we've already got a good group of people here chatting away. We also have a leaderboard, so make sure you check that out. The most comments is going to get your top 3 commenters in the chat here are going to get a special badge that YouTube gives you. Not sure what it's for, but it's a fun little game to be playing here while you're interacting with the community. So yeah, definitely take advantage of that. Liz says Marina Del Rey is what convinced me to move to LA. Came here for vacation in 2015. Okay. Yeah, I gotta go. I gotta make it out to Santa Monica. I saw some of the Casey Neistat videos back when he used to live in LA. I've always been an Orange County person, so Laguna Beach, Newport Beach, those are my beaches, but never really in Huntington Beach and Seal Beach. Well, I guess Seal Beach is kind of on the border of Orange and LA, but I never really gone to an LA beach proper. So we got to make it out to Marina Del Rey one day. Okay. And then so aside from the chat game that we got going on, become a member, get early access to the videos, and I also have member only videos. We got Chad here in the room who is a member, so special shout out and thank you to Chad for being a member. And if you find any of this training helpful, there's also super chats, which is like donations and a bunch of other ways that you can support. I'll drop a link tree here in just a second so you can check out all the different ways. But I got merches, I got books, I got one-on-one help. So if you need any one-on-one with any of these complicated topics, feel free to reach out and I'd be more than happy to help you out. And stick around because we are going to make an announcement, public announcement, and an exclusive offer here that we got for you all at the end. A little bit about me, just so if I see 70 y'all in here, so there might be a couple of new people that probably never seen me before. So my name's Alex. I do YouTube videos here on the internet. It's primarily focused on the topics of Atlassian. So I run the Jira Life as the co-host, and this channel where I have, I don't know, close to like 1,000 videos on how to use Jira. I do have the ACP 120, 620, and 520. And in about a week and a half, we're going to start the 420 study sessions so that hopefully either right before, during, or after Team 25 Europe in October, I get the ACP 420. Again, with that link tree that I just dropped, you're going to see all the resources. So that's that same thing as that QR code But I have the Jira Life as the co-host of that, so you're going to want to go over there and subscribe, especially if you're looking for a community on Jira and all things Atlassian. All right. So what are we going to be learning today? So we're going to be focusing on a couple of different things, but primarily I'm going to show you how to use what I'll put in air quotes, beta feature from Atlassian inside of your plans, which is program planning. Now, in order for program planning to make sense, we got to do a little bit of upfront work, which is usually where teams kind of trip. And so I'm going to show you some of the steps that you got to do beforehand in order for the program planning to make sense and in order for all of that world to come together. Because if you don't do these steps that we're going to do at the beginning, then you're going to be able to use the program plan, but it's just not going to feel right. And you're not going to be able to take fully advantage of all the capabilities. So we're going to jump into that. So before we go to the last and final slides, we're just going to jump into Jira. If you have any questions at any point, again, I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat here, but the chat's kind of active and a little busy. So just make sure you just chat away. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit as well so you all can see the screen a little bit better. And we're going to start off with a couple of things. And then let me move this over to the side because I'm going to need to give myself some notes that I'm going to need for the presentation here. So first thing you want to do is you want to use Teams. Now, this is not a hard requirement. You don't have to use Teams. In fact, I personally never use the team capability, but only because Atlassian really needs to make one little update to the teams, and that is there should be some control as to who can add or delete teams. Right now, it's open to anyone, and that tends to cause a problem for me, specifically when you invest a lot into making your program board, you do all those things we're going to talk about today, and then somebody naively comes in and just deletes your teams, which is not cool. And so Atlassian, if you're watching, a little bit of protection on the teams would be awesome. But because we don't have that, again, I try to avoid the teams. However, in order to do this, in order to do what we're going to demonstrate today, you do need to go to the teams. And so inside of Jira, welcome to the new UI. In case it hasn't been rolled out to you, this is the new Jira. There is a Teams section here. Now, because I, again, absolutely do not use Teams or promote them at all with my clients, I tend to hide it. I just not the best, but again, for this capability, our hands are tied, and we will need to use this Teams capability. So find your teams. If you haven't already, you're going to want to go into your teams, and then you want to make a couple of teams. So you want to make sure you have a few teams. Now, I already have a few teams that are shipping out of the box. But in your particular case, you're going to want to make sure you have teams available, because if you don't, then again, you're not going to have the best experience here. And so what I'm going to do here, just bear with me for a second. I need to write some of these things down because my memory is like Dory from Finding Nemo, and I will forget. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get two teams here. I'm going to get the AWS support at the top, and then my front end wizards. Now, again, these teams can be any teams that you want, but I would highly recommend you create some teams because you need to essentially put people in the teams. And then eventually, what we're going to do in a few minutes is we're going to add capacities to our teams. But the teams need to exist first. And so this is where you come to create a team. Now, in case you don't have any teams, you just create a team up here and you give it a name, and then you put people in them. Now, I recommend you put yourself in that team so you can get full visibility to everything, but you don't need to be in the team itself to do what we're going to do today. But again, your magic is going to vary, so just do what makes sense for you. And then you can allow anybody to join the team without approval, or you control the approval by having like a PM or somebody add people to the team. Okay, so once you have your teams, again, you just need a couple of teams here, and just we're gonna run with it. I use a Jira that's made by Atlassian, so this is out of the box. So none of these teams are mine, so that's why I'm writing them down because I don't have them memorized. But you're gonna want to make sure you have all your teams in there, or at least the teams that you're gonna need for your demos. Okay, that's step one. Step two that we want to do is we want to set up a project sprint. Now I'm going to skip around a little bit. And so we're going to want to go to our projects, and you're going to want to pick a Jira project and go into your particular Jira board. And so I'm going to see if I can find myself a one that doesn't have all of this. These are all okay. Let's go to this one. We're going to go to this platform board. And what you want to do here, this is an anti-pattern. I know we've had people in the past call me out on anti-pattern. So this is an anti-pattern, but this is how Atlassian wants you to do it. And in order for this thing to work the best, you're going to want to create a few sprints. And program planning, I guess I should back it up. Let's actually pause here for a second, and let me tell you a little bit more what we're doing today. So in your plans, there's a program feature available. Okay, and actually, let's show it to you right now. And so if you go into your plans, you're going to notice that there's a program column here. Okay, there's a section here for programs. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to bring this thing to life. Okay, and in order to do this, we got to do some of these homework assignments that we're doing up ahead. However, the program is a very specific, very niched thing that you would want to do. And the program is usually when you want to look across teams, right? When you want to look across Jira projects and you want to plan out not just the next sprint, but rather the next quarter, or at least some variant of the quarter, right? Because this model is very popular in SAFe. So in the chat, let me know who here uses SAFe, right? Who follows SAFe? Who's a SAFe practitioner? Who's actually using the SAFe methodology? Because if you are, then you're really gonna love this program view. For everybody else, you don't have to be a SAFe practitioner to take full advantage of this, but it's going to give you some good understanding. If you've ever looked up or researched SAFe a little bit, then this is going to make a little bit more sense, because in SAFe, we don't tend to, again, just do one sprint at a time, but rather we look at like a chunk of sprints at a time. And so, again, if Agile purists in the room, what we're about to do is a straight anti-pattern. For your SAFe practitioners in the room, then you're probably going to like this a lot. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of take a step back and explain why are we doing this, what's the program, and why we're doing a little bit of that extra homework. All right, so with that said, we're going to go back to our board, right, and we're going to go back to our backlog. And as I was mentioning, right, in order for, because SAFe makes us look, right, because this program view makes us look at a program increment, right? And the program increment is just not one sprint, but usually 5 sprints, right? Or 5 or 6 sprints that tend to align very nicely with a quarter, right? Because a quarter is 12 weeks, aka 6 sprints, right? And so what you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to create a few sprints, right? You want to create a few of them because we're going to need more than one sprint. We need to plan out multiple sprints. And so what you want to do in your board here, and specifically in the backlog of whatever projects we're going to be working on in the plans, we want to create at least 5, maybe 6 sprints, depending on whether you're peer safe or you just want to do a quarterly thing. If you're peer safe, you probably just want 5 sprints because, you know, PIs are usually 10 weeks. But if you aren't and you just want to kind of follow along, we need 6 sprints just to match with the quarter, because the quarter is usually 12 weeks and we need 6 sprints. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. Okay. So I got my 6 sprints here. I got more than 6 sprints at this point. And this is what you're going to want to make sure you have. Now, totally optional, but you can go to another board, right? Because the beauty of this is that it works across multiple teams. And so I would recommend that for every board that we're going to be using here, you create those 5 to 6 sprints as well. And so I'm going to pause here to answer some questions in the chat before we go on to the next step. So if you're following along, if you just make a Jira project and then make sure you have a few sprints in that project, because we're going to use them. All right, so we got a question here from Christopher. Is the recording for this webinar? Yes, so this recording is always available on this YouTube channel as soon as the recording is over, the live stream is over. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit that bell notification so you're notified every time that events are dropped. If you lost your audio, can I get a quick mic check from anybody else in the chat? Because I think my audio should be okay, but if somebody in the chat can confirm that you can hear me, that would be great. Anybody else lost audio? I'm gonna double check to make sure my microphone settings are good. Here, I'm seeing the right bars. We're good on audio. So Misha, you're probably gonna want to check your speakers because the problem is definitely not me. All right, thank you all. Wow, you guys came back there. Okay, awesome. All right, so any other questions? So we got John Elder here says, on the other side of things, I'm allowed to tell tech workers. Okay, I think this is just a conversation that where you guys are going on. Okay, perfect. So again, step 1, make your teams. Step 2, pick your Jira projects that you're going to want to collaborate in the next step. But for each of those projects, you want to make sure you have at least 5, maybe 6 sprints. They can be empty. We're going to populate them as we're going to show in the demonstration today. But in general, you want the sprints handy. I'll show you how that comes into play a little bit later. Now, the other thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you remember which boards you are using. And so I'm going to write those down as well because, again, I'm like Dory here from Finding Nemo and I will forget. And you want to make sure you bring in the correct boards in the next step, right? So once you've created your teams, and once you've identified the Jira projects that you're going to be using to do this program planning, and you've created your sprints, we're ready to go and create a plan. So we're going to come up to plans. Now, I do need to do another disclosure. This capability of plans is only for enterprise and premium customers of Atlassian. So if you're on the free version of Jira or on the standard version of Jira, you are not going to be able to follow along. And so you may need to start a free 30-day trial to the premium version of Jira so that you can follow along. But if you're not on premium or enterprise, you're not going to see the ability to create plans. And so what we want to do next is we want to come to our plan section here in the UI. Now again, because of the new UI, plans can be anywhere. So look for it. It could be up higher, it could be down lower, it can be under more. And so don't panic if you don't see plans. Everybody should have plans. You just need to find it. Atlassian likes to hide things now that you can modify your UI. And so we're going to click on the plus button and we're going to give it a name, right? And so we're going to give this a program planning demo 1. Axis, we're in the 7th version of this course, so by now you should know what the axis is for. You can either do private or open. I'm going to leave it open. And then here's where the magic happens. You're going to want to select your board that we've been working off of and select the team that you're going to want to be associated with that board. This is very important. You want to make sure you bring your team here. I know it says optional, but for what we're about to do, you want to make sure you bring in your team. And so we're going to do 2 boards. We're going to bring the platform board and then bring another team. And then we should be good to go. So this has a little bit of a delay. And so here we go. We have our 2 boards that are going to be our source. So this essentially, if you're new to plans, this is bringing in the actual work items into the plan, because you got to remember that plans sit above the Jira projects. It's a bird's eye view, if you will. And so we need a reference, we need a point to where our data is at. And then again, because we're doing the program planning and to get the full effect, we need to bring in teams. These are optional though. You don't have to do what I'm describing. You can get away with just a single project or a single board and not even bring any teams. But again, you're going to have a less than ideal experience, because to get the full effect, you want to do at a minimum 2 boards and 2 teams, and then you can scale up from there. Right. So once you have your work, you're going to hit create, and we are going to be off to the races. We're going to have our plan, and we're almost ready. We're almost ready to start our program planning. But there's one last thing that we need to do. There's one more thing, and I'm waiting for this thing to load. Now, I unfortunately brought in a project slash board that has a ton of work items. So it's going to take a second here, but it's all loaded up, and we're ready to roll. So before we go into the program, which we're going to get into very soon, there's one last thing you want to set up, right? And one more thing in order for all this to kind of make sense. And that is, we want to go to Teams, and you want to click on the Teams tab here. And holy moly, this is slow. So there we go. And you want to make sure both your teams are in here. So as you can see, only one of my teams made it in here. So we're going to add a team, and we're going to select an existing team. And this is where I'm going to pull in the other team that I thought I told it to bring in, but it did not bring it in. So it's always a good rule of thumb to go double check and make sure that your teams are both available. So I got my 2 teams in here, and that's check number 1. I got my 2 boards in there. That's really good. And now we're going to configure our team, and we're going to go back and configure the other team as well. But here's what you got to do here. So when you add your team, right, you have all the people in there. You're going to go with your issue source. We're going to tell it where your team exists. And I believe I gave Platt to the AWS support. And you're going to want to write these things down in case you don't have them memorized. And then your planning style should be Scrum. You do have the option between Scrum and Kanban, but if you're doing program planning, you're most likely going to be doing SAFe, which means you're most likely doing Scrum to a certain degree. And you're going to pick your sprint length. They should be the same, right? 2 weeks is ideally, but make sure they're consistent across whatever setting you set up here. And then we have our capacity. So this is how many story points can the entire team, not one individual, but what is the capacity for the entire team? Okay. Now I got a question here from Israel. Is there a work items limit in program plans? Like, yeah. So because the program is pulling the data from the plan, we have the hard ceiling of 5,000. So we can't add more work than what the plan can support, which is 5,000 at the max. Which is also why my thing's kind of sluggish. I'm probably pulling in like 4,700 right now. So a lot of work is in this plan, and we're not going to use it all. Okay. But the capacity, you will need to figure out your capacity. Now, the best way to show or figure out your capacity is to go look at your velocity charts in Jira. If you've never used them, let me show you real quickly. I'm going to go to another tab here and go back into Jira because your velocity is, or your capacity is going to be very, very important. You need to know, before we get this far, you need to know how many points your team can actually handle. All right. And so you're going to want to go, okay, I don't know why my Jira is freezing up on me. Um, you're gonna want to go into your projects, and eventually, when these things load, wow, this is why I'm not too happy with this new UI. I don't think it's my internet. I know that I'm streaming here, but I do not think it's my internet. I think it's this Jira. Come on, Jira, you can do this. Here we go. So you're gonna want to go into your board eventually, if and when Jira decides to cooperate with me. All right. Well, while that's loading, we're gonna answer some questions. So this is not points, it's weekly hours, right? So you get to choose, Funir. You get to choose if you pick Scrum. So that's a great question. So if we pick Scrum, it's going to be points. If we pick Kanban, we don't get it. It's just hours. I think this might be a typo here because this should be story points. But I also think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it also has to do with how you have your board set up. So you can go to your board settings and you can go to your estimation and make sure that they're all set to story points. Then everything should be story points. This is the best method because when you go look at your reports and you look at your velocity chart, it's going to give you the capacity of your team here. And so this is usually processed in story points, because if you use anything other than story points, I believe your velocity chart doesn't work. And so you're not going to get the information you want. And so you want to make sure that you're using story points for this. Okay. Um, so what if my team's using Kanban? One team's using Kanban and the other one's using Scrum. So if one team's using Scrum and one team's using Kanban, then you have a mixed match, and you can do it. Jira's not going to complain, but at that point, you're going to have, again, a less than ideal experience, because this whole program thing is, well, you'll see what it looks like in a second here, but it's designed to show you all your sprints and help you pre-plan your sprints so you can see all your dependencies and stuff. And so if you have one team using Scrum and one team using Kanban, it's okay, but you're shooting yourself in the foot. Yeah, so there is, yeah, so you're right. So there is a setting. We'll go take a look at that one as well. All right, so this is right here, your charts, right? So you want to look at your velocity chart. This is going to tell you how many story points your team can usually signs up for. But the most important one you're looking for is how many they complete. So in this case, I have a bad example because they never finished anything. But the average of this number, that's what you're going to want to put in your capacity. Okay. So we'll go back, and again, I'm just going to leave it for 200 for now, but make sure that this number is representative of the actual number that you and your team are responsible for. So don't leave the default of 200 unless your team actually does 200 points, right? So I'm going to click on done for that to save that one down, and I'm going to close this Jira down because my speed is very slow here. And so once you do it for one, you're going to do it for the other. So you can click on this over here, go to team settings, and then you're going to, again, map to the other board, set Scrum, set your capacities. I'm going to leave everything the same, but again, you're going to want to tweak these to your specific needs. All right. And so the other thing we're going to do is we're going to check our settings over here. We're going to click on these new dots, plan settings. And yeah, so our estimate is in days. So we're going to want to move this one to story points just so that we have consistency there. It does default to days when you make a brand new plan. And so keep that in mind. Now we're going to go back. Whoops, too far back. Oh boy. Where are my plans at? Here we go. Program planning demo 1. All right. And now I'm going to just out of curiosity to see if any of those settings changed anything. We're going to double check to see if those that wording changed to from hours to story points. Holy moly, do not bring in almost 5,000 issues or work items into your thing because Jira will go sluggish. Atlassian, you might want to lower the limit here. Okay. Yeah. So now that I changed it to points, you can see that this did change. So we want to change it back, right? So this is now in points. So again, let's just say 100 points for each team. And so we're going to change that up so that we understand that the capacity for each sprint is 100 points. And so, yeah, so very, very important. Good call here, Frank, right? So this points or the measure, the unit here is going to be dictated by the plan settings, and make sure you are in story points or whatever one you and your team need. All right. All right, folks. At this point, 26 minutes in, we have done all the homework, all the necessary plumbing to then be able to use the program. So go ahead and click on program now, and we are ready to create our very first program. Not enterprise, though I had access in our dev, but no. Yeah, sorry, Amy. You might want to sign up for your own Jira, and keep in mind that if you can sign up for your own Jira, just go to atlassian.com, and then you can buy Jira for free, and then just start a free 30-day trial. And as long as you don't ever put your credit card, you can basically keep it going forever, because once your 30 days ends, you can go revert back to free. And as long as you stay under 10 people and just for your own demos, then you can always promote yourself back up to premium and just kind of rinse and repeat, and you can keep it premium for a while. Just don't ever go over 10 people. Okay, so now we're ready to actually plan our next quarter using a program board, right? And again, this is going to give us the ability to plan sprints for multiple teams, manage the capacity, and then visualize the dependencies. So I'm going to show you basically these three things over the last 30 minutes that we got together. So we're going to click on create program board, and you're going to want to give this program board, right? So don't confuse this with a Jira board, but this is your program board. And this, again, you can call it from the quarter, whatever you're going to do it. I like to put the quarters, right? So I like to do like, what are we in, Q2, 3, right? We're in Q3 2025. And you set your start date, which started, let's just assume that the start date is today, right? And we're going to go 2-week durations, and we want 6 columns, right? So this is going to get us out to the next quarter. And then, so that's telling us that we're going to basically end around the 14th, which is very much, if we had we started on the 1st, then we would actually hit the quarter, right? But again, we have a little bit of a late start. And so we're going to end a little bit into Q4. Now, you have the ability to narrow down your items, because I'm pulling in 4,600, right? Almost 4,700 items. If you want to optionally, right? If you wanted to do extra homework before even all the steps that I showed you earlier, there's one other thing that you can do, and that is you can use either a label or a custom field to kind of call out what should be in your plan. Now, I'm going to accept all the work. I want to see all 4687, but if you've already kind of put things into a version, right? If you've already put things into your fixed version, let me see, release. No, never mind. Don't use fixed version. But you could use, again, a label or another custom field that is in your plan, that's going to allow you to say, okay, don't show me everything, but rather just show me these like 100 items, right? Maybe you want to restrict this to only plan on your epics. Maybe you just want to do initiatives, right? So if you want to limit this list down, then definitely take advantage of like a label field or some custom field to bring that value down. Now I'm going to just click create because I haven't done any of that up front. But that's totally optional for you if you don't want to get down to the nitty details of seeing every story, task, and bug and everything. And so this right here is our board. And again, I have almost 5,000 items, which is why we're kind of sluggish. And we have an infinite loop here. There we go. We got rid of that. And this is what the program board looks like. So let me walk you through what you're seeing and how this is all going to work. So first, you can search, right? So if you know the actual key, I don't have any keys memorized, but if you wanted to search for like plat 33257, you could just type in plat 33257 and it'll find it for you. So if you already know the key, you can search for it there. We have the ability to change between your boards. So you can have up to 10 boards here. And so we can create new boards. We can manage different boards. So You don't have to just plan one. So your actual plan can have multiple boards, multiple program boards in it. And so we're just going to keep it simple with one, but just know that you can add a couple of other boards if you wanted to as well. Yeah, so Angie says, yeah, correct. You want to add a label like, yeah, PI7, right? That'll work. Um, you can also filter by specific epics. If you just wanted to see the work on a specific epic, this is going to be handy. We'll come back and use this in a little bit. But this kind of just filters down, right? We have 4,700 items. Maybe we want to focus on planning out this epic. That's the most important epic that our team wants to work on. We'll plan that one out. We have type as well. So maybe you just want to see your epics. Maybe you just want to see the tasks. Maybe you just want to see the bugs. And so you can do that as well. And then if you just want to do a project at a time, you can just again filter everything else and just see the work items that belong to a specific project. And then we'll be able to see dependencies that are on track or off track as well when we get there. Okay. We can also go full screen. So if you want to just focus on the plan, because let's face it, there's a lot happening in this UI. We're very crunched up in here. I recommend you go full screen. And then you have a couple of view settings, like you can expand and collapse everything. So you can collapse it all, you can expand it all. You can show the dependencies, which we'll show you in a second. We can actually focus and just show me the dependencies for a specific work item. We'll get a demo of that as well. And then you can see which fields you want to see within the view here. Okay, so I'm going to pause there. Any questions on just the UI? Let me see if there's any burning questions over here. I think we're good. I don't think I see anything too alarming. Okay, so this next part's going to be, it becomes a little bit more trivial, but again, trivial is not the right word. This next part's optional, okay? Because let me show you what we got down here, okay? So we have these 6 columns, and these 6 columns are broken up because remember we told Jira that we were going to have 6 2-week columns, right? And so it went ahead and did that for us. But now we have this add sprints button. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to click on this, and this is going to allow us to basically call out our sprints. And you're just going to go through it and make sure you just select all your sprints, right? This is why you wanted to have all 6 sprints. Now, again, you don't have to do this, but if you go through this effort and you actually map your sprints out, some other cool features are going to be enabled. So we're going to go through that and enable all of the sprints. And so we just added them for that particular team. I'm going to come back in. And then the feature, if I ever do this again, remind me not to include the project that has 5,000 items in it. Somebody slap me next time. Christopher wants to know, will allow you to do advanced filters. So what you see is what you get. And so any advanced filters you would have to do at the JQL level and bring in only that work into your plan. And so you'll either have to JQL for your plan or just, live with the consequences that I have. What you see is what you get, Christopher. So what we were able to do there is what we got. Okay, so we have our sprints here. So you can see that now each sprint is associated with each column. That's good, right? And so when I hover over them, I want you to look at this, right? Because now it's going to show us how many points are allocated, or how many of the 100 points that we have per sprint allocated have we used up. So this is going to help us with planning our sprints, because we're going to be able to figure out if we're at capacity or not, right? And so just for fun, we're going to do the other team as well. And so we're going to just do all the sprints here. And I'm just going to make sure that every sprint is added to this. Okay. We click on add, and then we're good to go there. So give that a second, and this will load up with the new sprints. Oh boy, definitely never ever include all like 5,000. Just because it says it can hold 5,000 doesn't mean that it should hold 5,000. This is painfully sluggish. All right, we have all of our sprints. All right, now we can ignore these messages that keep popping up 3 times, and we're ready to roll. All right, so next, what you're gonna want to do now is you want to basically start putting your work based on your PI planning, right? So if you're doing PI planning, program increment planning, I've also heard it called big room planning, right? You come up with this like big master plan, if you will, of what do we want to do, right? What does a plan look like? Which stories do we need to do, right? And so I'm going to randomly do this, but you would want to put a lot of thought into this, right? But let's just say that this is the most important story, and you're like, this one needs to be done by this team here. And so it will eventually make its way on there, right? And so I'm going to hide unassigned just to give us a little bit more room. And so you can see that we now have a story. It's worth 3 points, and we put it into this sprint, right? Now, at this point, if I were to go into Jira, I'm not going to because it's just so painfully slow. But if I were to go into Jira, you're not going to see anything because just like the plans, you have to save your changes. So we're not going to save them yet, but at the end we'll push our changes, and then you'll see everything gets figured out. Okay, and so you would say, hey, well, this story is super important. We're going to work on that one, and then we just again, I'm going to randomly bring some things in here just to kind of demonstrate what this looks like. Now, this again, do not recommend you pull in 4,600 items. Jira will cripple when it's under load. Okay, and then we can add some to future sprints as well. So they don't have to be all in the same sprint, and you have the ability to go out to multiple sprints later, right? So I can actually come all the way over here and go, this one has to happen over here, right? And so you just go through the exercise, and this is where having that label or filtering, as what we're going to do next, is going to help, right? And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually go to the other team's board. And ooh, this is not good. I wanted to see the other team. Let me not do that then. Let's collapse this team, and we're going to go to mobile. I'm going to type in mobile. Actually, you know what? Let's do an epic. We're going to do this epic. Nope, this is still giving it to me under unassigned. I don't want it unassigned. It goes to the other team. Okay, so for the front end wizards, we're gonna do this. I don't even have stories here. Here we go. This one. We're gonna do this story goes here. Okay, and we're gonna grab another story. We're gonna grab this story. And my Jira is painfully slow. Apologize for this, folks. Next time, I'm gonna pull in a Jira project that does not have almost 5,000. I wanted to play on the safe side because if I don't have enough stories, then this demo becomes very boring. Okay. So you basically go through this exercise, right? This is go refer to your safe training and whatnot. But there's a method to the madness here. You don't wouldn't just randomly pull things in. I am because I'm a team of one, right? But you basically go through the exercise where you go through all of the work and you can filter by your epics, you can filter by the type, and you just go through this exercise where you plan out this work, right? So each team ultimately is going to be met at capacity. So when you hover here, you can see how many points we have for the sprint. And so we want to add as many stories as we can to get us up to our capacity. All right. And so you just go through this exercise sprint by sprint by sprint by sprint until eventually I would recommend you get to like maybe 70-80% on the high side of capacity. Don't fill up 100% to capacity because we are planning, we're sitting here on July 22nd, but we're basically being asked to predict the future all the way through the middle of October, right? And I don't know about you, but I'm not much of a gambler, and I'm not very good at fortune telling either. And so, because I can't predict the future, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself by planning out the whole sprint. That then your plan becomes very what's the word I'm looking for? Not flexible, I guess is the closest thing I can say. And so we want to make sure we're a little under. So I recommend 70%, right? So don't fill it up. Get 70 points out of 100. Don't fill it up to 100. 80 if you're feeling lucky, right? But you basically go through the exercise and fill this whole thing out. You do have the ability to create new stories here, though. So if you have a story, right, because in the heat of the moment, this conversation is going to pop up, and you're going to go, "Hey, I need to do this, or I need to do that," or whatever whatever the conversation goes. You're able to create new stories here. You can create a new story, a task, whatever work items you have. You can change the project that it's in, and so you have that ability to do that. And so again, so don't feel compelled that you have to have your story already pre-existing. You can actually create stories on the spot. Okay. Now, here's where the magic is going to really kind of shine, right? Because you're going to figure out, this is the easy part in my opinion, right? Somebody, the squeaky wheel usually gets the oil. And so somebody in your team, probably like a tech lead or something like that, they're going to have an opinion, right? Maybe your product owner, right? Maybe your product manager, but somebody's going to have an opinion about which stories need to be done and by when, right? And so this is going to give you two benefits. One, for that specific team, you get to see the work that we want to plan out, right? And Maria, you were gonna get exactly into this. And this is exactly what we're trying to get into, right? Because just laying out your stories, cool, helpful, but order of operations matters, right? PEMDAS, right? Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. The thing we learned in like since grade school. That's very important to us, right? You can't just blindly work on work. Usually, work is interrelated, and you need to do it in the right order. And so, what we like about our plans is that it's going to give us two big advantages. One, for each of these items, you can click into it, click on these action button here, and you're going to be able to add a dependency. And when you click on that, you're going to be able to pick if you're blocking or if you're being blocked by, and then you pick the story, right? And I'll notice that I can block a story, right? I got plat as one and then mobile as the others. So I can block a story by either another story on my swim lane or from the other team. So I'm going to do both just to show you. So we're going to do plat, and I really want, hold up. So what happens when I'm compared to this gunfight here? What is the 33259? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this particular story and I'm going to add a dependency that I'm blocked by. And then I'm going to type in plat dash 33259, which is the one all the way at the end. Okay. And I'm going to add that. And so now we see this line. And so this is going to help us. If you've ever done a classic PI planning, right? I remember so vividly. My very first program increment planning that we did, we had this giant butcher paper, like humongous butcher paper. It's like the size of a whiteboard. And we had all of our stories and everything, like columns, just the way this looks right here. And then I remember we had the yarn. We actually grabbed red yarn and we started, taping the yarn onto the stories to see the dependencies. But holy moly, was it hard. Once you had yarn everywhere, it was so hard to see what was actually dependent on what. And then glue and stickiness of a sticky is not as well as advertised. And yeah, PI plans were called spaghetti in my previous company because of the dependencies. Yeah, it looked like red spaghetti. But this makes it cool because you can basically reenact that similar behavior and feeling, right? Because you can essentially link things together, right? We can say, hey, these two things are blocked by this particular same item. And so once we have these lines, then we can do something with this, right? Well, then we can say, hold up, we got a problem here, Skipper, right? We got a problem because this story is done on week 5 or sprint 5, yet we have two items that are dependent on it. And so, you got to take a time out because that doesn't quite work out very well. And so now this is where you can now negotiate, right? Now you can go, okay, well, we can fix that right away, right? You can move that you can move that story to the current sprint. If it ever moves, come on, Jira, you can do it. There it is, right? And so now you're self-dependent, right? Now you're self-dependent within yourself in the same sprint, but to make it a little bit easier to eliminate the dependency, we just simply negotiate, right? This is a negotiation you got to do. And you just move those stories out. Because remember, at this point, all we're doing is planning. We're not committing to anything just yet. We're trying to lay out our plan, right? We want our plan to be ideal. And so all we're doing is essentially moving cards around to get the right plan. Because you don't want to go to war without a plan, right? You want to arrive at the battlefield with at least a plan. Even if the plan goes to hell, the moment you step foot on the battle plan, you still want a plan. And so this is helpful here because we can now link our items together. And again, this is going to carry through to the regular plan view, and you're going to be able to see these dependencies. However, here, when you click on them, oops, not there. Where are you? Sorry. When you click over here and you go and look at this particular story here, so we're going to type in plat 33259. right? We're gonna see those dependencies, and because they're gray, again, Jira's trying to keep it a little cleaner for us, and so we don't have to see them. But the dependencies never disappear; they're there. But these are just healthy dependencies because, as Maria was asking here, we have our predecessors, right? We know that this needs to happen first, and then we're gonna be able to see this. So Jira does a pretty good job at cleaning that up for us, so we don't have to see all those dependencies, but we'll be able to see them there because they're technically there. It's only when things get sideways on you that things don't look good. All right. Now, the other thing that we can do, right, is we can take this particular story here, right, and mobile 28, and we're going to make it dependent on plat 33256. I want to show you what this looks like, right? So you can take this particular story here and we can add a dependency, and they don't have to be within the same Jira project. So one of the nice things about this program view, and this is very much realistic to the real world, is that you're oftentimes working with other teams, right? And so you're working with other teams, and so you are going to have dependencies across multiple teams. And so this is where things get much more interesting, but this is good, right? Because now it's kind of one thing to negotiate internally within your team. I think you have a little bit more autonomy there, and your team dynamics come into play, right? Like, hey, we're on the same team. We should be able to work together. But where things get real tricky and real hairy real quick is when you got to work across two different teams with two competing priorities and two different cultures and all that other good stuff. And so this view here makes the conversation a little bit more objective, right? And so you can go, wait, hold up. You guys are going to work on this story, but we're not going to work on it here because we have our dependency with this one, right? Because now you have the traceability of the dependencies. And so you can go, you if you guys are going to want to start this one, you have to go to at least this sprint over here, right? And so now you can move it to eliminate those dependencies. So now you have the order, right? Now you know that this story has to happen first, because then these two stories have to happen next, which then is going to enable this story to happen next. And so, and you avoid that duplicative work, you avoid those conflicts that arise because people didn't over communicate expectations, and you're able to visually see these dependencies. You're visually able to see how this work is interrelated so that you work at the right time. But more important is you can communicate with your stakeholders and go, hey, we had a plan and your timelines were a little bit more aggressive, but now that we know, right? Now that we've sat down, we have our stories and our ducks in a row. We can tell you that the earliest we can finish this particular thing is going to be September 2nd, right? And that's assuming, again, everything goes perfect at that point, right? But you can see how the conversation goes from like, hey, everything needed to be done by August 5th. But you're like, no, based on order of operations, based on dependencies, based on objective data, earliest we can finish this particular feature, right? If you were doing feature based or whatever you want to do, you can now reliably say, it's actually going to come closer to the end of this sprint over here on September 2nd. And so that, my friends, is how you use these program views, right? It's not as in depth, right? Again, your mileage is going to vary because your teams are going to be, a little bit more special, right? The real world is always a little bit more different. But I'm going to pause here to see if there's any questions. Otherwise, I think I've given you everything you'll need to know to use this program view. The last thing to do would be to hit your save changes here. And I don't know what happened there, so hopefully my thing doesn't get all messed up. But you save your changes, and then they're pushed into Jira, so those dependencies are there. All those stories are now in your sprints, and so they've made it over there. So now you're just ready to, start your sprint when you get there, and you're good to go there. So it's not going to let me. Again, I'm not going to troubleshoot why it's not going to let me here. But essentially, you just save your changes. Oh, there it is. Okay. Push everything into Jira. You'll have your dependencies, any rankings that we would have done, right? All of that gets preserved and gets pushed into your actual Jira projects. And so now when you go to your board, which is what I'm going to demonstrate next, everything's going to be in their sprints. Okay. And so let's wait a second here while these changes get saved. And let's see what happens. I want to remind you to hit that subscribe button. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, we got 100 of you here in the chat and in the call today, and we are trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button and you found this video valuable, make sure you you support the channel here and hit that subscribe button. And also, needs to drop for a warm meeting. Thanks. Yeah. So just real quickly, you all notice that Chad here is green. At least it looks green to me, and that's because he's a member. So if you do want to become a member, you get early access to all my videos. You have member only videos that I drop, and then we're gonna have member only streams and office hours. So if you want some one-on-one time with me, we have that as well. So how do we deal with external? How are we going to deal with external dependency? So Kima, you gotta pull in all the people, all the teams, right? Your board can handle up to 5,000 items, and so you want to pull in all the boards. You don't want external to be outside of this, right? Because if you have true external, right? If you're dealing with like ultra external, like maybe another vendor or another company, then you got to put stories, you got to like bake it a little bit, you got to make like a story to deal with that dependency and then add a dependency to that. But yeah, ultimately you want to minimize, right? You want to minimize how many true external dependencies you have. Okay, so our plan got saved, so we're going to go into our Jira project, and I'm going to go into my mobile, I think it was mobile dev. No, Cowboys. Where are my Cowboys at? There we go. We're going to go into the Cowboys backlog. And we're going to see that all those stories that we created are in here. So that's good, right? And so we basically pre-planned a bunch of our sprints using this method. So again, let me know if there's any other questions. I do want to remind you that we have an exclusive offer here. So I'm going to drop. So if you are interested in taking a couple Udemy classes, because you guys come over here, because you come to my classes, we have some coupon codes for you all, so you can take buy these Udemy classes at a discount. Additionally, if you are interested, we are basically done with July. I finished all of my July work here, but the year is not over, and so we still have many courses left. And so make sure you sign up for the rest of the courses for the rest of the year. I love seeing all your friendly faces here on the stream. And so make sure you sign up for those. And then if you missed any of these, they're all on the YouTube channel, right? They're all on my YouTube channel. So I'm gonna drop the link tree here. Go to YouTube and basically watch those. They're all under the live section. So if you go to YouTube and you go to Ape Tech Tutorials, right? And or you could have gone through the link tree, right? You want to make sure you go to live. They're under the live section, and you're gonna see them all here. And so if you fell behind on any of these, make sure you come through here and watch all of the recordings. And I also have a whole bunch from last year. So if you care for any of the ones from last year, they're all in here as well. So there are lots of free trainings out there. And then I do want to highlight this one. Come back on Wednesday if you have the time. On Wednesday, so tomorrow, 5 p.m. Pacific time, I am going to be hosting a course here on Rovo and specifically Studio. So if you're interested in how to use Studio, powered by Rovo for Jira, we're going to do a hands-on demo tomorrow. So definitely sign up. Link is in the chat there. And it's a great opportunity for you to come and learn how Atlassian envisions Rovo and all that good stuff. Now, at the very least, I recommend, oops, I lost myself. At the very least, I recommend that you connect with me on LinkedIn. So again, in that link tree, there's my LinkedIn. So follow me, connect with me, become a member to the channel. Again, you get early access to videos, you get special member only videos, you get call outs and shout outs here. Chad's like my BFF now because he's a member. So highly recommend you become a member, especially if you find these contents valuable. Atlassian doesn't pay me for this stuff, and so my kids get hungry quite a bit. I also have some free courses on Salto. I saw you already dropped the courses that are on Udemy. I have a merch store with some pretty cool stuff. Subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to the Jira Life. And then starting in the fall, we are going to be doing instructor-led courses. So keep an eye out. I am going to be doing some, Zoom-based one-on-one trainings. So if you're interested in that, and then finally, if you need any help with any of this stuff, in that link tree, you can buy 30 minutes, an hour of my time, and then I can help you out. So that's pretty much it, folks. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you all taking the time out of your busy days to come hang out with me. And so I don't have a Discord, Tushar, but it is in the works. It's something we want to work on. Just trying to figure out the logistics. I'm not very big on Discord as far as knowing how to use it. So we're figuring it out, but as soon as we figure it out, Tushar, keep an eye out. But I'm pretty sure we're going to probably put it behind members first, or at some point members, so that you guys can ask me questions directly for a nominal fee. So that's it for this one, folks. Again, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 100,000 subs, and so make sure you help us get there. So see you all next month. Bye.